And we are live. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30. It means it's time for the office hours here on the ViaMonstra Academy. I'm Johan. Andrew is Andrew. And we'll be sharing updates and answering questions on anything related to MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, and ecosystems around it. So that being said, let the show begin. All right. Hey, Andrew, how are things?
Going well. I'm feeling quite energized from our first Intune masterclass this week. We've made it halfway through.
Yeah, that's been a long day for sure, but this is fun. This is good stuff for sure.
Absolutely.
And on other updates note, I just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up because next office hours, next Wednesday, we'll have a big announcement coming up, so you don't want to miss that one. But I won't say any more. That's just a cliffhanger for today. Not even Andrew knows, so there is that.
Can't wait.
So what happened? Yeah. So what happened in the Intune world this week, or our little systems management world?
Yeah. So a couple of things. We had some. If you'd like to share my screen, I got a couple of things that I can share.
I'll consider it.
All right. Appreciate that.
Oh, there you go.
Good announcement yesterday coming out about Windows Update for Business reports are now generally available. If you're not familiar with them, I think we touched on these a little bit when they first went preview several weeks back. But if you're not familiar with the Windows Update for Business reports, this is sort of the evolution of the update compliance solution, where you can configure your clients that are being updated through Windows Update for Business to upload their Windows Update telemetry basically to your tenant, and then get some reports and information about the devices and their update compliance. So a nice announcement here. Some good information in here that I actually have this configured over in my tenant. We can take a quick look at this just to see what it looks like. So basically, it's a solution that still uses log analytics, just like update compliance. And you can view the workbook that kind of gives you the dashboard and report of that data from within Azure Monitor. Give some good information here about security update status of your devices, feature update status, whether your devices are actually on an in-service feature update. And then you can dive into some quality updates, feature update details, and even delivery optimization details to kind of take a look at the efficiency, bandwidth efficiency of update content within your devices that have been onboarded into the solution. Glad to see Microsoft sort of evolving this solution. I still heavily recommend the MS Endpoint Manager update compliance solution that we've featured here a few times as well. That relies on some of this data in addition to some custom inventory that they upload into your log analytics workspace. But as you and I talk about a lot on these office hours, I think we're always happy to see some of these solutions become a little bit more native to the platform. So good update there. On the topic of Windows updates, we had a good conversation just a few minutes ago, actually, with Brooks Pepin, talking a little bit more about the Windows Update for Business deployment service. So this is basically, as I understand, the deployment service is a way to programmatically manage Windows Update for Business. And really what that means to me is that Microsoft is now exposing endpoints to Windows Update for Business via MS Graph, which is cool. We can start to get information about deployments and create deployments through that API. Still in the beta endpoint, and Microsoft has said that they're going to be building on this service. What we were talking about specifically, though, is let me find this thread here. A few weeks back, Brooks started a Twitter thread basically trying to get more information about how the feature update policy works in Intune. And it turns out that the feature update policy and expedited quality update policy are actually using the Windows Update for Business deployment service already. It's just sort of obscured away from the client. And what he found out was that your normal Windows Update for Business rings have a CSP and actually put registry keys down in the client. But when you deploy these two types of policies, it's all on the server side. Nothing actually gets set on the client. So if you want to get more information about a particular device, you basically have to connect to MS Graph, query a specific device ID to see if it's been configured to actually be offered a feature update. And in this Twitter thread, there was quite a bit of good information back and forth between Brooks, Matthias, and Gabe from Microsoft. So just some really good stuff that I learned this afternoon that I kind of wanted to be able to share with everybody. Some interesting stuff they've got coming out of there, though, Johan.
Absolutely, yes. That's some cool things happening for sure. Just gonna check the quality of the stream. I got a little announcement from the service provider we're using that connection were not entirely happy. So I'm just gonna bring it up on my phone real quick and see if we still are sending out something or if we decided to take a Sunday break.
Good idea. Looking okay so far on my end.
Yeah, I'll say it looks good. All right, we'll disregard that for the moment. Now, other news this week, there was a post from Damien, or basically a follow-up to one of his posts that we showed last time here regarding collecting blue screen data over from clients and basically using proactive remediation scripts to do that part. I'm going to head and share my screen real quick. So closing yours, sharing this one. So just a follow-up to take that information and upload that through to SharePoint. So it's an older post, but I saw the announcement coming out this week about some changes to it. So that could be interesting to take a look at for sure. Other than that, let's see. I lost my cursor. Here's my cursor. There was a thread going on this week regarding autopilot and re-registration of devices that I found quite interesting. Herman that talked about this, and he's one of the program managers on the team. But basically, if you register an autopilot device and don't do much with it, you will actually have to re-register that device if you later want to enroll that through Autopilot to Intune. Apparently, it's related to the certificate becoming invalid. So this was some good information that came out, and there was a promise later down where they actually will update the documentation with this information also. But this was one of those things that stood out this week. Like, that explains something. We did talk about the update for business support already, and then there was also a new post from Rudy that we have showcased quite a few times here on the Academy regarding the new store and using Winget and those interactions. So highly recommend to review that one once it shows up. But we'll, as usual, we are sharing these links in the chat and on our stream or our YouTube channel later down the road. So that was all I had in terms of updates that I stumbled across. Do we have any questions coming in today?
Yeah, it looks like we got a comment from Brooks, actually, saying that the stream was good from his side, which is good. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
We've got a couple questions coming in on YouTube. Hi, Johan. I want to deploy an app that can only be installed for specific users only, not all users in the company.
Did he or she say if it was Intune or ConfigMgr?
Nope, that was going to be my question as well. Because that would make a difference. There was a
we can cover both scenarios, obviously. You in Intune, you can have groups with users and you assign your applications to those groups, and they will only be available for if you happen to be a member of that group. And in ConfigMgr, you do the same thing, but you do collections. So you have, instead of a device collections, you will have user collections and deploy software to those. So that's pretty straightforward.
That was actually, somebody had a follow-up comment basically with that in the chat. So
there you go.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye out if there are any follow-up questions on that one. Got another question coming in on YouTube. What benefits does the DP without PXE without the WDS role, basically? What are the benefits of that? In what case would you recommend to use the WDS-less option?
Yeah, so to give a little bit of background on that one, let me go to one of my site servers here. So on your distribution points, in the technical preview, Microsoft actually has 3 different PXE responders, but in the released current branch product, there is only 2. One that is based on Windows Deployment Services and one that is not. And this option here is the one you select when you want to use the one that is not. And a benefit of doing that is that it's a very much more lightweight service than WDS is, because WDS is actually a pretty big infrastructure for being a PXE server, because they can do other things. They can do multicast, they can do imaging and other things. So the WDS-less PXE server doesn't support multicast, but very few people are using it these days. But it can also be installed on clients. And it doesn't break when Microsoft decides to patch something in Windows, because it's maintained by the ConfigMgr team and not the Windows team like WDS is. There were some incidents 2 years ago where Microsoft managed to break it twice in 3 months' time, which was pretty impressive. But for those people that had to redo all their distribution points quickly to solve the problem, they were not so impressed. So I recommend starting with this one. If you set up, if you're using Microsoft PXE servers, the WDS-less one is, in my opinion, better than the one that is based on WDS. So, long answer to short question. And the way it shows up on the DP, it will show up as a different service. So it will no longer say ConfigMgr is going to be this responder here. In my DP right now, I just stopped it because I was testing some other PXE servers on the same subnet. And when you have multiple PXE servers on the same subnet, they have a tendency to argue with each other. So, but of course, normally it should be just started and running here. The cool thing about it, it's using the same log file, SMSClientInstallPropertiesin log file, and it's using the same PXE tweaks that the old one used. So let's see here. Jürgen, you need a Jürgen in your life. Mr. Jürgen Nilsson, he have a good post on TFTP configurations.
Pretty sure he spent a couple of minutes testing this one.
Yeah, once I find the post, I will happily share it.
If you want to share my screen, Johan, I have it up.
Yeah. All right. I will. Thank you. That's the one. So a few years back, Jürgen spent some time with a stopwatch and was testing different block size settings and Windows settings and basically how they affected boot time. And the WDS-less PXE provider also honors these. Our usual go-to setting is 8K for block size and 2 for window size. That seems to be like a happy medium that most hardware is happy with, but that's pretty much it.
Right here.
So, yeah, that's the one. Good stuff. All right, let's see what else.
Let's see. Today's topic of updates, my org wants to stick with WSUS if possible. I can spell letters, I promise. While still going full native. Is this even possible or recommended?
No. I mean, WSUS will still patch machines if they're configured to use it, but I don't see why you would. I mean, I see why you would integrate it with the ConfigMgr, because if you're using ConfigMgr for patching for servers and clients, you have all these very rich options or rich settings to work with. But if you are planning on switching away from it, that will be having Intune configure Windows Update for business policies would be probably a better option. You do get the benefit of peer-to-peer of the clients for updates that are being downloaded. So you can get some good performance out of it. And WSUS so far haven't received much love over the last decade or so, to put it mildly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be supported for quite a while longer. I just see few and few organizations like implementing it fresh, other than if they're using ConfigMgr, because currently you're required. That's the only option. Anything you'd like to add to that one, Andrew?
No, just there was a follow-up comment. Mostly it's because management doesn't like the current state of Windows Update for Business and how it's not as feature-rich as WSUS. So I think my recommendation would be to keep an eye out then on the deployment service that we were talking about earlier, because it looks like you'll be able to, at least the plan is, I think, to be able to build some more of the advanced type of controls that you may want to have in place.
All right.
So let's see. Just a comment about Rudy's blog. Rudy's blog rocks. pretty sure he knows more about Intune TPM issues than anyone else.
I'll say yes to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Let's see, a ConfigMgr question. Is there any easy way to get the total count of apps advertised to a user in their Software Center? We just want to know how many apps are available for a user to install from Software Center.
That would have to be PowerShell. There is no option in Software Center to see that. Unless you just count them. That works. It's easy to see on the server side because you just right-click a resource and will tell you how many deployments it has. No, that will have to be some sort of script to get that information.
Yeah, I don't have anything else clever either. All right. What's your opinion about using Windows 10 long-term servicing in enterprise environments?
My opinion is don't. I don't like it. I don't use it. There are use scenarios for it, but they are very, very rare. They're often there to be controlling some sort of medical equipment or something, and simply because of compliance reasons or whatever, that device can never change. But for normal uses, I would never ever deploy a long-time servicing channel of clients. Servers, obviously, that's all we use these days for infrastructure. The old SAC releases is fading away, and that was a good attempt, but it was not a great attempt from Microsoft's side there. So long-term servicing channel for servers, thumbs up. Long-term servicing channel for clients, thumbs down.
Yep, agreed. I think Microsoft themselves would even recommend steering away from it if possible. Same with the M365 apps.
Yep.
All right, let's see here. I just had a bunch of messages come in at once, so I'm just trying to... Let's see here. In a perfect world, what would be your best scenario in a co-management world? Would you pass all the workloads into Intune?
That's one of those. It depends heavily on what you need to do. For example, I'm working with one customer now on a weekly basis. They just started their cloud journey, and they just realized they have a significant amount of large applications that they deploy frequently. As a university or educational type organization. And while it's possible to add such workloads to Intune, it doesn't deploy very quickly at all. So they kind of have to share that workload. And a fun part about that particular workload is that you can actually have both. That's the only workload that works that way, so that if you flip it to Intune, you can deploy from Intune, but you can also deploy from ConfigMgr, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to give up at all, but of course you need to maintain your ConfigMgr infrastructure, otherwise there will be no fun. So no, it's a typical it depends answer.
Yep. All right. Follow-up comment about I think just a scenario in which an organization needed Windows 10 long-term servicing, ruggedized handheld devices, and everything else gets Windows 10 Enterprise. So just another one of those use cases, maybe special use cases.
Could be, yeah.
Right. Let's see. In my tenant, I have 5 VMs that I have enrolled via Autopilot, not hybrid. When I go to Reports-Endpoint Analytics-Overview, I see the following. 100% of your Windows 10 devices don't have a deployment profile for Windows Autopilot. The way I enrolled these machines were via Autopilot using a deployment profile. Any idea what this means? When I click under Cloud Provisioning under Autopilot Profile Assigned, it says no.
I mean, if you go to the devices before they are enrolled, it will show up as assigned.
Let's see. Don't have anything about Autopilot there. Here we go. Yeah, interesting. So mine says 40% don't.
Yeah, I mean, I have the ones I have are matching.
Okay.
So I can share my screen real quick, I hope. See if it allows me. So down here, I have a few devices that are. So this one is the Autopilot profile assigned. And down here, I can zoom in so I can. It does show up a bunch of them as yes. And those devices here, just by looking at the serial numbers, are devices that have been assigned a device or a profile here. Not all of them, but some of them. So it should show up if they have a profile assigned.
The whatever math is happening on that report, though, I'm not sure. Mine says 40% of my devices don't have a deployment profile, but when I click into the report, only 30% of the ones in that report actually do have a profile assigned. So if the question was surrounding the actual math of the report itself, that I'm not sure.
I can check my math here and see if it's any better, because it's basically like 5 out of 4 or 5 out of 28.
Mm-hmm.
So where was that percentage showing?
If you click the Overview tab at the top of this report. Yep. Over to the right, 88% of your devices don't have. See, it's the under Insights and Recommendations. It's the last one.
Yeah, but I'll say that is probably somewhat correct. I had 4 or 5 out of 28. Well,
you know what?
12%, but it's not too far away.
I wonder if it excludes. I'm just spitballing here based on what I'm seeing. I wonder if it excludes the ConfigMgr managed devices that have been onboarded. Because if I take those out, then my 40% makes sense.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if anyone happens to know, by all means, ping us in the chat and we'll be happy to relay the information. But all right.
Let's see here. Wow. All right. Got a few questions here. Follow-up comment about WSUS and Windows Update for Business. I believe it's more about granularity of controls with when updates are delivered, specifically when bad updates are released, and the ability to delay, not deploy them. So definitely you do lose a lot of that granularity that you have in ConfigMgr or WSUS today, but you can at least pause updates and things like that with the Windows Update rings in Intune and using Windows Update for Business. But yeah, you definitely do lose a lot of that granularity. Let's see. Question coming in from LinkedIn. One of the questions I got recently around co-management was if we move all the workloads to Intune, will their servers be affected as well?
Well, no, because you cannot enroll servers to Intune. They can show up there, but you cannot manage them. They cannot be enrolled. So any co-management thing that you throw out, it won't apply to these devices. I mean, in my tenant here, I have at least one server, one of my distribution points. This one here is tenant attached, so added from ConfigMgr, but nothing of the co-management workload from Intune will apply to this one. It doesn't do it. So yeah, hopefully a short answer to that one.
All right. Have you come across any security rules on the network that stop clients from sharing DO data?
Well, stupidity I've seen. One customer we talked to, they put in real firewall rules in between every client. And if you block all traffic, it's going to be hard to do any type of peer-to-peering. But other than that, as long as the ports are open, as long as DO is configured to actually talk to the other peers on that subnet, for example, using a group ID or a subnet filter or a DNS SD filter, something like that, then they will happily share content to each other. I have been a few scenarios where a client haven't been able to reach Microsoft's update servers and haven't been able to figure out that there are friends locally. But that's more like a very, very rare scenario. The DO log file will be your friend in that scenario because they will actually tell you which peers a client is trying to communicate with or which network it belongs to, etc. So you can get a lot of info from the log file.
Cool. All right. Any downside to moving patching and BitLocker management to Intune in a co-management scenario?
I mean, there are benefits to the BitLocker management in ConfigMgr. Having all that information locally in the ConfigMgr database, having normal ConfigMgr policies, the self-desk or self-service portal type thing. But I met organizations who moved over that workload happily to Intune and are managing that way. These days, both Azure Active Directory and Intune allow you to show recovery keys on devices. So key rotation is supported. And all the policies are there. I mean, if I go to just one of my disk encryption policies, very, very, very straightforward or easy to edit. And then you're done. So And these would be the same settings you would do in BitLocker management in ConfigMgr. So one of those, again, it depends.
And on the topic of moving patching in a co-management scenario, I think that's one of the ones that you and I are seeing is one of the first workloads we're seeing people move to Intune.
Yeah, definitely a good top on the list for updates on workloads to move over. BitLocker or application deployment may be a close second.
Mm-hmm. All right. Some of the domain join machines in our org surprisingly started downloading and applying Windows 11. Do you have any idea on how to stop this? Any SCCM configuration item, configuration baseline out there that I can steal with pride?
I think we had that question like 10 times on the Academy by now. Should probably make a favorite of that tweet. But bottom line, a managed device configured correctly is not supposed to offer that update, but sometimes they do anyway because of how policies are being applied on the client. So I will once again locate that tweet from Stephen Kister and share it.
That's the. We actually had a follow-up comment related to the target release version info and product version registry keys. I think those are probably.
Yep. So this is basically what needs to be there. And if they're not, which can happen, you can have something that just smacks it in there. Baseline, something. So would recommend that.
All right. Changes made to an ESP. Where can we go to track down who made changes?
I mean, you have the audit logs in Intune. Not sure if they are detailed on the ESP page, but that would go what I would look.
Make a quick change, and we can check back in on that in a few if we want.
Sure. All right.
Let's see.
Shall I share your screen then?
Yeah, we can. We can see how quickly it pops up. I just made a quick change to an ESP here. I changed the number of minutes it takes for an error to show up.
Okay.
From 60 minutes to 61 minutes. So we'll keep an eye out here on the audit log and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they're not instant, the audit logs. It can take a little bit. The same as the signing logs. Mm-hmm. They can also be a few minutes behind at worst. But we should see something, hopefully.
Yep.
So we'll keep an eye on that one. Andrew can hit refresh every 10 seconds.
Let's see. Is there any way to configure app and browser control from SCCM or baselines that you know of so that configuration does not show any warnings for users?
It's not something I have done. Anything that you have played around with, Andrew?
I have not, unfortunately.
I'm afraid that answer is going to have to be don't know.
Right. I'm working on removing my org's legacy OneDrive sync restriction for domain-joined machines. Microsoft seems to recommend using conditional access policies instead to restrict OneDrive sync, which seems to require that you restrict the cloud app instead, which would be SharePoint, is what you'd specify in conditional access. However, this also blocks Teams desktop app use for those who are not compliant. Is there a better way to block OneDrive local sync while still allowing Teams desktop app use?
I haven't tried that specifically, but often when you stumble into situations like that, it's often possible to exclude. So have an include and then exclude whatever that it needs supposed to still work from it.
Well, and the interesting thing about that is if you do select, SharePoint, for example, in a conditional access policy, you do get that warning. It's not only Teams that it affects, but Planner, Delve, My Analytics, and Newsfeed. Teams, obviously, most likely the most user impacting one there. Yeah, that's a good question. I have not come across that either.
If anyone happens to know, feel free to shout out in the chat there, but that's something I have tested.
All right. How can we automatically mass update the icons of all of our 600 plus SCCM apps to 200 by 200 pixels so that our apps look pretty and standardized in Software Center?
That would be PowerShell.
Yeah.
And large script, basically. Looping through, and you have to have some sort of lookup on or place the file in the source folder on all the different source folders that you have there, and do the script. I don't have a ready-made example, but if it's not possible through a ready-made commandlet, you can typically do it through WMI anyway. So scripting.
All right. Let me check my audit log over here. Nothing yet for the ESP.
Yeah, all right. Let's see what else. Question from Alex on YouTube: how to use the variable SMSClientInstallProperties in unified sequence in environment with 4 different sites. I mean, you can duplicate that step 4 times and set conditions on it, and basically have 4 different. So let me bring up a sequence here. Am I still sharing? No, you are sharing. Here we go. So if I go to the sequence, and the question is basically, what if I need to deal with multiple sites for whatever reason? So this step here controls the properties of the client that you can add in, for example, configure a log file size and things like that. So if you need to have different properties, if they're not exploded as a variable, you can obviously make multiple versions of this one here. and put condition on them to only run one of them for, depending on some sort of network condition or something. So that should be doable. Don't remember seeing any variable for that. Maybe let's take a quick look. Sequence reference. Maybe. Could try setting this variable. And you can set that in a script before the step that runs. And that can have like logic in it. So possibly that. How is your policy going there? Or not policy, but audit logs?
Still nothing so far. Refreshed once or twice while you were sharing your screen.
Yeah, all right.
Got a question coming in from LinkedIn. We have a good number of devices, 12 to 15%, that show as unknown for their status for software updates. What is a typical place we can look to rectify this?
I mean, is it Intune or ConfigMgr? That is the question.
While we wait for that, we had a couple of follow-ups about the SMS client install property. Somebody on YouTube recommended setting a dynamic variable step to set the appropriate variables, and then set the client command line, use the variables.
Yeah, that works. That works.
Yep. And then can I specify variable properties for each location and say installation properties field? And keep the installation properties field in Setup Windows and ConfigMgr step empty.
My understanding of this property is that if it is configured before that step runs, that step will run it, or will use the variable instead of what you have in that field. So leave it empty and see if it applies the settings that you put. You can just put in some log file values and see if it changes. Not sure if this one is actually the MSI properties or if it's normal executable files properties, but I would guess the MSI properties, because that's usually what you configure in that step. For example, here, we were configuring stuff like this, and they are extremely safe to configure. I just bumped up the log file size a little bit. We can try set that as a variable and see if it actually does it.
Cool. Do ConfigMgr Delivery optimization client settings that are set through Local GPO conflict with Intune DO settings, or do they coexist since they are essentially using different systems?
So we actually had a discussion about that earlier today in the class. Anoop have a good article on, and I can't even spell Anoop, MDM wins GPO CSP. This one here, where in general, a group policy has higher precedence over CSP when there is a conflict. And I haven't tried with a local policy, but I would assuming that's the same the case because it's still a group policy. Now, there is an option to say that MDM will win over a policy, but that's going to be depending on what policy you're working on. So, for example, the Windows Update policies, they don't honor that at all, and there are other settings that will not honor that. The shortened recommendation is stay away from having conflicts, and life will be so much easier. So if you are planning on setting something through an Intune policy or a device configuration profile, make sure to get rid of any other policies on that machine.
All right. Question coming in from YouTube. Our org user count is 3K plus. We don't have all of our users properly segregated by their departments. How can we properly segregate these users by their departments with minimal overhead? We want to use their department and their roles to advertise apps to their software center accordingly. If you have the ability through whatever your identity management system would be to populate the department attribute on their user objects or somehow place them into groups for each department, that would do it. But I think we get back to scripting or some other system. Anything to add, Johan?
No, that would be the way to do it. Try to figure out one way or another to automate it and populate all those values through Graph, PowerShell scripts through Microsoft Graph, and then you can have you can do dynamic groups, and depending on what values you put in there, there are also device filters that can be used to further filtering stuff.
Yep. All right.
I think we got a reply regarding our software update status. It was ConfigMgr, indeed.
Yes, we did. I'm sorry I missed that.
I mean, the software update area for ConfigMgr has actually been one of the areas that has been updated in recent years with some downright amazing troubleshooting steps for software updates. So this one here will basically take you through the entire flow, and for each and every flow there are like, okay, this is how I follow this and verify that this is okay. So this is something I would do on the devices that appears to not to be working correctly with software updates. So, I mean, it's really good information for each and every of these things. So, yeah. Anything else? Still have a whopping 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, a couple more questions coming in both from YouTube. We're still deploying Windows 10 21H2 via ConfigMgr. Any reference to updating the outdated MS Store app during OSD? Not Store apps, but the MS Store app itself.
Not something I have done.
No, and will it come down if you update the image at least? I don't know when they updated it within the OS, or if it was updated within the OS itself.
I don't know about that one. I mean, regular Apex packages, you can have the sequence happily install if that one is available for an offline download, but I have not tried.
All right. Okay. Yeah, the update's not within the ISO. Okay, that answers that question too.
Yeah.
Right. What is the recommendation for excuse me. What is the recommendation for upgrading Windows 365 Cloud PC from Windows 10 to Windows 11?
I haven't the foggiest idea.
Something I've dealt with.
No. Provision a new one. Get rid of the old one. I don't know. I have not done it. Can ask Donna if she knows. Let's check back next Wednesday. If anyone happens to know, by all means, share it. I used to have a few of them in my tenant, but I stopped using them because I didn't need them. For those of you that arrived late, by the way, next week we will have a big announcement on the office hours. So just a cliffhanger until then. Did we miss any stuff? We had a good chunk of questions today.
Yes, we did.
I don't see any more. And I think we answered all that we could answer. Let's see. All right, here was one coming in. 2 questions coming in. Let's see. Device reporting consumer version in ConfigMgr. I'm not quite following that question.
Any way to go from consumer to business? The thing I can think of is home to pro or enterprise.
Well, you have the upgrade edition option in ConfigMgr. It's a built-in solution to change the SKU from Pro to Enterprise. If that works from home, I do not know. I haven't tried. I still consider Pro to be a consumer edition, by the way, if it's not technically the case. Everybody should be on Enterprise verification, preferably.
Right. And then could you explain what is the max size of a task sequence? It's confusing in Microsoft's documentation where they specified 2 megabytes and 32 megabytes.
Depends on what ConfigMgr version you're on. That size have changed over the years. It's easy to see though, because you can just to go to your console and to your sequences, and you can look at the size of the sequence. But it is going to depend on what version you're on. And I don't remember on top of my head which version that has what size, but it shouldn't be too hard to look up. All right, we are up on the hour. Andrew, thank you for joining. Everyone out there, thank you for all the questions, and see you guys next week.
Thanks. Have a great week, everybody.